Well, hey, you are watching the video version of the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. It's so good to have you here. You can find this show on any of your favorite podcast platforms. There's the art, looks like that. You got Apple Podcasts, you got Spotify, you got all the rest. Anywhere you want to find it, you can check it out. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Well, welcome back to the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. My name's Austin Savage. I'm here with my friend and business partner, Kelsey Zarko, and we're glad that you're here. We are having a crazy start to the week, it feels like, recording this on a Monday. Kelsey, you don't have to give all the details, but your life's a little crazy right now.
Just, if you've ever been stuck on an airplane with children alone, you know how I'm feeling right now. We'll just leave it at that.
It is nuts. So anyways, all sorts of things to do, feeling the entrepreneurial life right now and loving it though. So it's kind of how it goes. But I feel like that kind of context and vibe is actually kind of a perfect undertone for our conversation today. Because we have a few things we want to talk about before we jump into it, but we do want to talk about like how to build a brand without like living on your phone or feeling like you're just constantly like having to check things, having to respond to things, having to, you guys get it. A week like this, we kind of feel the pressure of like, there's so much to do. Like we're a little bit behind. Things aren't going the way that we thought. And this is when it's easy to kind of jump into the style of life or whatever that we don't want to live because of the pressure. And it's like when it's even more important to have the conversation that we're having today. Do you agree?
So good. I love that.
All right. Kelsey, I did want to tell you that my wife listened to episode 1 from Marketing Should Be Fun.
Awesome.
Which is fun. Yeah. And she criticized me because you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I did not mention like the main thing that I wanted to be when I grew up, which is kind of crazy. A musician. And it didn't even pop in my head, but that's literally what I thought I would be. I forgot about that. I thought that I would live in a van with like a band and just like,
that's amazing,
travel around the U.S. So
I could see that. I mean, you wanted to be an astronaut, also a musician. You ended up as a content marketing agency. It fits.
Yeah. What's next? I don't know. Did Matt make fun of you for anything?
I don't even know if he's listened to it yet. I know. He probably has because he listens to like 3 podcasts a day. Yeah. But we were out of town, so I'll have to get on him about that.
You will. All right. Let's jump into our this or that, and then let's have our conversation. So got a couple options, but I think I'm going to go for this one because I feel like your answer is interesting. Netflix, or I guess we could go like
other.
Yeah, or other. Like Hulu, Disney Plus, something else.
Okay, well, we just had to live this out in real life in our house because we watched, what is that show called? Oh, The Big Bang Theory. Have you seen that? You guys ever watched that?
I haven't watched all of them, but I have seen it.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we love to do together is we'll like watch a show from start to finish.
Yeah.
And it wasn't on Netflix. We had to get HBO Max. And so we're like, okay, if we're going to pay for this, we need to cancel Netflix.
Oh.
But then my favorite show came back with season 3 on Netflix. And I couldn't watch it because we didn't have it. So it's an extreme first world problem that we're having right now.
What's your favorite show?
I mean, it might not be my favorite, but it's called Virgin River.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure some people listening have watched it.
Totally.
It's so good.
I've like secondhand watched it as Larissa has watched it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It's very dramatic.
I guess my answer, it is very dramatic, but it's a book series too. So,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's like tons of books. You always have to read the book before the movie. That's just like rule of life.
Yeah.
So I guess my answer would be whatever platform has the current show I'm watching, I will pay for, but I will not pay for all of them.
That's interesting. So you go like one at a time, kind of.
We had Netflix for years and years and years, and we just kind of were like, some of the shows we're not super into anymore, so switched around.
We're literally the opposite. I think I pay for like every single one. But the funny thing is I don't watch that much. Like I guess I use it more for like my kids, and every once in a while I'll sit down. When The Office was on Netflix, I would watch that a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know, that kind of just put a damper on the whole thing for me. But I think we have Netflix, Disney Plus, Discovery Plus.
Oh, we have that one. I love Discovery
Plus, and especially with the Magnolia Network, that one's like pretty solid right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then we inherited Hulu and HBO. I don't know.
Inherited.
We got it.
Yep. Lots of family sharing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's totally fine. Totally fine. Anyways, so there's our this or that for the day. Kelsey, why don't you kick us off for our conversation today?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this one. It's a conversation I have with people all the time when we talk about, most of my background is using Instagram specifically to promote your company or your brand or whatever it is. And we just have a lot of conversations about how do I do this and not live on my phone, or how can I spend more time off of my phone? So I'm super excited. We kind of have like 5 tips or pointers to walk through today. Dive right into them.
Let's do it. What's number 1?
Okay. Yeah. Our first point is that you really just need to put down your phone and live your real life so you have something to build your brand about.
Yeah.
If you're not living a life and plugged into other things and people and community and ideas, you're probably just going to start to feel a little stagnant, not very inspired, and that's not going to bleed well into whatever it is you're building. So it's kind of ironic, but you do need to put down your phone in order to build a life to share about. On your phone.
Yeah.
True, though.
It's true. Yeah. I was watching, I don't know why this popped in my head, but I was watching on Disney Plus, to bring this back up.
There you go.
The kind of like behind the scenes of like Pixar Studios or something that they have.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because a lot of the creators there were talking about how important it is to get outside of the, the building and like go like walk the streets and go to places they haven't been before, because that's where they find inspiration. And I think on a general level, it's the same way for us. Like if we're just like, hunkered down, like always on call, if you want to call it, like look at it that way, or just like ready to jump in and respond to a comment on our Instagram, or, respond to a client when they email us or whatever, then we're like never getting that space to be us and like really feel like a human and be inspired to then come back to the work with and do better work as a result. I don't know. That just popped in my head.
No, it's true. We're either stuck in just like go mode, so we can't be inspired, or we're just comparing ourselves to what we're looking at online, or, whatever it is we're doing. And then we just can't show up as our real self and what we're really gifted with. Yeah.
Do you feel like for most people that at least you chat with, especially like on the social media side, is the pressure like just not wanting to live on your phone, or do you feel like the pressure is just like the pace of everything from your perspective?
I think it's living on your phone. I think it's living distracted. Like we so know deep down in that we need to like be present, and that we like want balance. But it never looks as cut and dried as it really sounds. And so I think that's the tension we're living with, is like, how do I not be on my phone all the time, be able to be connected and present, but like we also still have to work and show up. And so that tension of trying to be both and all of that. Yeah,
this is totally not what our podcast is about today, but what do you think of the term work-life balance?
I don't think it exists in the way that people imagine it. I don't think balance is a great word. I think it's just like you're playing, how like, this is such a silly example, how like when you're watching sound on like, Apple or whatever it is, like the video creating, and like it's going up and down. I think that's what life is always doing. So like sometimes work is higher, and like, somebody's like watching my kids today so I can work. And then tonight I'm like putting my phone away and not going to something I was supposed to go to because like my kids need to go up. And so instead of balancing, it's just kind of like a prioritizing.
Totally.
I don't know. Maybe that is balance, but that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think of it the same way. Like it's not, and this is what it comes down to, because in order for us to kind of create that feeling of balance, like we just have to have kind of some of those perspectives and like, I don't know if you want to call them boundaries, but like ways to just organize our time so that we have the best way to make the decisions kind of as the day goes, because we're always having to make decisions about how we're going to spend our time, what we're going to do, what we're going to have to say yes to and no to, just constantly doing that, every day. And it's hard if we don't like do the work beforehand to kind of set those things, which I guess brings us to number 2.
I feel like that was the perfect segue.
So number 2 is to set your priorities, values, and boundaries. And that's just really, really important. And that is different, even for you and I, Kelsey. Like the way you even view like your time and like your day, even like the seasons of life is very different than like I approach it. So like just recently, this pops in my head, but like we were approaching school year and stuff like that. And for you, it's kind of like this, it's almost like a value that you have where it's like a new start. It's like an opportunity to like reorganize. I'm just oblivious to all of that stuff. And I'm just like, we're just doing our thing. It's life as normal.
You'll get there soon.
Yeah, I guess I will. But
your kids will get older.
But it is really, really important. And I know when the company first started, one of the things I wanted to do is just make sure that we had like really, really clear values as a company to guide our decisions and our work. And so we have some like work-based guidelines, like innovation. I think action is one of them. People, like we always want to be prioritizing people and like making them feel seen, heard. Right. But another main one that we like really, really focus on is family. And the line under that is none of our team, like anybody. I don't care if you're a freelancer or if it's one of us, but like we don't apologize for putting our family first. And that helps us make decisions because there are times when it's like, wow, I really feel like I need to hustle and get this video done or whatever. Yeah. But I also know like I have a 2-hour window tonight where I can hang out with my family. And that value, because I've put it in place, we're able to say yes to family and no to work at that point because it's like looking through that lens. And I think the same thing is possible for the people listening to the show. Like it doesn't have to be the same as what our values are, but you have an opportunity to really like be intentional about setting those guardrails and those things that you want for your life and your business to help you make those decisions day in, day out.
I love that about our company. Like there are so many times when I first started working with you that I'd be like, I'm so sorry. Like, remember we were on a call and one of my kids like threw up in the other room. And I was like, I'm sorry, I have to go. And you're like, we don't apologize for family. We've gotten really good at calling each other out on
all
it
the time, but like we're learning.
Yeah. But it does help. I mean, whether that's with work-life balance or not living on your phone, to know what your like priorities are, what you're saying yes to, what you're saying no to.
Yeah.
And, being able to know that like, I don't need to look at this on my phone, or I don't need to answer this email right now because here's what's important. And I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
There's probably a whole talk in there about scheduling and all of that too.
Totally. Do you have values like for yourself and your life that kind of go beyond what we have as a company?
Yeah, I don't know that I would call it like an actual, it's not like a written out, nicely done value. But one thing that we do that's important to us is like having a Sabbath. But just like time to unplug and like restore and do things that are different than what we do during the week. We got really good at it. And then when everything happened with the pandemic and we were just always on our screens, we got way out of it. But I notice how it affects us. So our kind of guidelines for that are that once a week we like turn off the TV, we literally turn our phones off. Matt leaves his on in case there's an emergency, but I can't do that. I have to like turn it all the way off or I will look at it.
So you really do you shut it off.
Yes.
You put it in a drawer. It is.
Yeah. It's kind of this value we have of like, we need to remember that life goes on without us and that like, we're not really that, like the world is not resting on our shoulders and it is such a good reset. Oh man, we need to get back to doing that. I would just say it's important to take time to think through that. Whether it's with your family, so I guess one more point on that is sometimes with your spouse, if you are married or people in your household, you may need to talk through values and boundaries around your phone. All of my jobs have always been working on my phone, and it can be easy to like sit there on the couch and it feels like to each other that we're just like scrolling on our phone when in reality one of us is working. And so just having that conversation of this is time where I'm sitting by you, but I'm working. This is time when our phones are going to be like over on the counter. That's really helpful too.
Totally. Yeah, it's so easy to like make that mistake just in general. And like my wife is in school, she's working, she's doing like all this different stuff. And so like she could be doing so many different things, but you have to ask. Okay. Number 3 is ground your identity. What are your thoughts on that, Kelsey?
This was a huge one for me. It can be easy to think what we're building, our brand or our business or whatever it is like the most important thing about us, and that our identity or just how we even like view ourselves is based on the successes or the failures or the time spent or how much you're doing. And that's just not true. And it's a setup for really exhausting like rat race. So for me, And, you know, for those of you that are listening, to just take time to like step back from that and remember who you are, who you were made to be, what's important about you, and not let being on your phone or like performance be the thing that is driving you or to be who you are, because then you will want to like live on your phone and be like a slave to, you know, doing everything that we're supposed to do on our phones or build or type or respond. And that will be so exhausting and so miserable. And you won't have a lot of joy in what you're doing, which is a whole nother episode topic.
We have a lot coming up. We do have an episode very soon coming up, though, about like confidence in who you are and who you're not. And I feel like this space, like giving yourself the space away from your phone or away from work, it almost is like the foundation of like building that confidence and like reminding yourself of who you are, what you love, why what you do is important to you, you know, why the things outside of work are important to you, and like just kind of like reminding yourself of the like unique facets that make you. And I just think that is so important for your perspective, your identity, all of that stuff with work, because it really is kind of the foundation. Like it is what is setting you up to be a confident like leader in your workplace, but also just to like not burn out and to like enjoy it. I know that's something I've been like really getting better at since like beginning of the business is now on the weekends, like I don't even think about work. And I'm like, I've had a few like mentors around me kind of encourage me in that and just kind of help me see the opportunity there. But it has been so helpful. Like I come to Monday and I'm just like, hey, what's today going to look like? I'm actually going through and like reading notifications for the first time, rather than like going into Monday just being like, all right, another day. Like we're just, you know, continuing the grind. I've really enjoyed it. And I've like been reminded of facets of me that I like ignored, you know, and or things that I forgot that I liked or that I hadn't done for a while or whatever.
Yeah.
It's important.
That's awesome. I love that. I've noticed it too. Yeah. I'm like, we don't have notifications going everywhere on the weekends.
It's true. Yeah. So have you really noticed that?
Yeah, I've really noticed that about because so what I was going to say about this is you can kind of set that up for, you know, however it works for you. I do work on the weekends a lot because I don't work when my kids are awake or, you know, whatever. But I notice I'll send you like 4,000 notifications on like a Saturday afternoon, and then I don't get anything back till Monday, and that's great. It's important.
Yeah.
I think too with this, I was just thinking when you were talking that it also helps with our culture of needing like that validation of like likes and shares and who's paying attention. I was reading this really interesting article all about how we have like all these dopamine spikes in our generation because you get that dopamine spike when you know, somebody, it's like gratification, like when someone likes something or comments or, you know, you get a message. But when that spike is so high for too long, your body's like used to that being high. And so it needs more and more of it. And that's feeding into the stats we're seeing on depression and anxiety and all of those things. Yeah. Certainly it's a multifaceted story, but that was just part of it that I was reading. So when we take the time to back up and ground our identity in who we are, you know, whose opinion really matters, you know, into our lives, we're able to see through that lens a little more clearly and accurately and not feel like we have to live for however our content is performing or whatever that might be for our brand.
Yeah. I think that goes back to our last episode too, of just that idea that like we put too much weight on numbers in general and not enough weight on relationships and stuff like that. And so we're searching for that like gratification and identity on, you know, these platforms when that's really not, it doesn't do anything for us, you know, other than play an emotional game.
Yeah.
And it, really, really helpful. Number 4, work smarter, not harder. Kelsey, our resident expert on working smarter.
I love a good work smarter, not harder conversation.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
This is kind of the like nitty gritty practical side of the conversation, but I think it's just where a lot of it comes from, because when we're talking about not living on our phone, there are so many things out there today that help us appear as if we are on our phone when we're not. And sometimes you just have to play the game a little bit. So whether that is things, especially with social media or like blogging or, any of that where you're putting your content about your brand out to the world, you don't need to be there in real life when that's happening. There are scheduling tools, there's like planning tools and all of that help you be able to do your job well. Because we're all about, representing ourselves well, doing the job of putting content out there very well. But you don't have to be available 24/7 and able to do that in order to do that.
Yeah. Would you say the main thing there is scheduling tools?
I think so. And I think also when this is like very nitty gritty, but if you're listening to this, you're probably interested in, sharing content with your audience.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that, creating a new perspective of thinking ahead of time. I know this is your favorite thing to do, Austin.
I'm so good at it. Just kidding.
But making like a content calendar, sit down and print out a blank calendar and write out all the things you want to post about that month, or, write out 8 blog post ideas, or, a whole month of podcast ideas, or whatever it is, and just teach yourself to get ahead and be planned. And then you're not feeling that stress in the moment of, I need to put a post out. What do I do? I'm stressed. And then again, it's not enjoyable. You're living on your phone, and that's just not the point of what we're doing.
Yeah. The other side of that too, I would say, is like also freeing yourself up, like just like not putting too much pressure on yourself for like that kind of stuff. I know for me, like I've had to kind of sacrifice what I do on my personal, like social stuff like that to focus on like some of what we're producing for clients and even like our company social and stuff like that. And so just like that decision I've made of how I'm going to spend my time has freed me up to like not put this pressure on myself to where I'm like, I'm failing or something like that.
Yes.
But literally such a game changer to like be ahead. I mean, for some like tools that we use for most of our clients, like we just use Creator Studio, like directly in Facebook. Super simple and free to use, at least for now. And I'm just kidding. I don't think that I don't know what they'll do.
It's a great program.
And then we also like, for social scheduling specifically, like there are tons of tools out there. There's like Buffer, there's a tool called Later. There's, Hootsuite's still around. Sprout is another one. Like there are so many different tools, and they pretty much all do the same thing. And so like and most of them have free versions as well. And so like there really is, I don't want to sound too strong, but like there's not an excuse to like not do that necessarily, because it's available to you and it's going to help you to save your time and to just be a little bit more intentional about like batching that work rather than always feeling like you have to produce it.
Yeah, if you're feeling the stress of I'm always on my phone because I'm always trying to think of something to say, it's probably a good idea to back up a little bit and think about planning ahead, trying out some scheduling tools, and just lifting that off your shoulders a little bit.
Totally. Another tool we use is Asana, and we use that for like just internal management. I think that has saved us brain space galore.
Yes.
And part of it is because we have so many projects going on at once, or like so many different clients. But I think that's the same thing for any entrepreneur or leader. Like if your team or you just have a lot of stuff going on, you should have a project management tool of some sort, whether it's Asana or Trello or Monday is one, like any of these tools, because it just like takes what's in your head, puts it somewhere that like gets it organized, and then you don't have to like sit there stressing about it because you know that like it's there. And that was like a huge thing for me. I went way too long without Asana, like it was even just a couple months, and like I was just trying to remember everything that I was supposed to do. And it's not sustainable. So that's another thing.
Okay, the other one I have to plug really quick is also Slack. I love Slack.
100%.
If you're feeling like you're on your phone all the time because you have like texts and emails, of course you can manage your notifications and all of that, but Slack will help so much with your team of just keeping messages in one place. It's just easier to use. That has helped our team a lot too.
Yeah. Do you still use App Limits?
I do. I love App Limits. Okay, I'm going to also this is just going to be a whole episode full of resources.
Why not?
There is a book, and I'm going to forget the title of it now that I just said I was going to say it. But it helped me so much with managing like how much I'm on my phone for entertainment versus like I turn my app limits off all the time when I'm doing social stuff for our clients because I literally need to be on the app to do it. But yeah, for my own personal time, I use app limits, especially on social, but you could use it for whatever is your like go-to to just like scroll mindlessly. So it kind of reminds me like, oh, there's a pop-up that says my time is up. I need to go do something that's actually going to refresh me instead of just thinking that this is going to do it. I remember the title. It's called The Common Rule. Okay. It's very intense. You're probably going to love it if you're like an Enneagram 3 or an Enneagram 8. And everybody else might be like, this is really intense, but it still has good principles in it. So I would highly recommend it.
The Common Rule, Habits of Purpose for an Age of Distraction.
So good.
It has a pretty cool cover.
Yeah, he's a cool author. He's writing one for like families right now too. But what I love about it is he's like a high-paced lawyer. I've read a lot of books about, you know, work-life balance and faith and technology and all of that. Yeah. But sometimes I don't relate to the perspective they're from. But this guy, I was like, he has a family. He has little kids. He's working like a high-paced job. Yeah. I feel like I can take what he's saying and relate.
Totally. I'm interested. I'm going to order a copy. It'll take me 2 years to get through it, but I'm going to order a copy.
I love it.
All right. The last one that we want to talk about is just give yourself grace. I know that we kind of say about like, you know, being intentional and, you know, creating boundaries, having values, all of that stuff. But there also are seasons where like crazy stuff happens. Like Kelsey, there's seasons where like you are stuck on a plane with toddlers for 6.5 hours and you like just need some time to like decompress or like you know, so it kind of goes back to our whole perspective is that like you're a human. And if it's like a normal quote unquote season, you know, like you're going to be able to put these things in place, but there's also like workload is a little higher. And so like you kind of have to make decisions and sacrifices to get those things done. But if you see that those, I guess like those increased workload seasons are lasting for quite a long time, then it might be time to kind of revisit this conversation and be like, hey, am I living the life that I want to live? Like, should I put some new boundaries in place? But if it's like a one-off, you know, 1-2 weeks or something where you're working on a big project or something, like, you know, don't beat yourself up. Like, it's totally fine and it's going to be all right. And if you're also in a season in the other way where like you're not feeling super motivated or something, also don't beat yourself up. Like, give yourself the space to just like, you know, be and like kind of use that time to just do things that you do like. And kind of like work back up to your normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And people will connect with that too. It all goes back to our first episode about content performing on a human level. People appreciate it sometimes where I've been like, I couldn't handle it. I needed a week off. I like threw my phone away for a while.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I relate too. And so just like we're saying, there's a balance, there's grace from both ends of the spectrum and both are okay.
Yeah. It is a good opportunity for content if you want to look at it that way. Like, you know, like your moods could actually be a good like inspiration for what you post because like you're saying, like you could say, I'm really struggling with motivation recently. Like, do any of you have any tips? And like people will have ideas and things to share. I remember I did that. Like my afternoon slump for like my whole career life is so hard.
You struggle.
Yes, it is. It's like 1 to I don't know, like 12:30, I'd say to like 2. I just like, that is my least productive time. And I remember a little while back, I posted and I was like, hey, does anybody have tips for like getting out of an afternoon slump? And I got so many and I've like thought about those even like now whenever I'm in the slump. So
what a cool opportunity to like connect with people about something real. And I love that.
Totally. All right, Kelsey, final word of encouragement.
I really need to start remembering that you're going to ask me this because every time I'm like, what's my word of encouragement? I think I would end with it's worth it. I know it can feel really messy to think through this and it's not going to be this perfect puzzle piece where you have everything in the exact right spot, but it's going to be worth it to take a step back, think through how you want to spend your time because how you spend your time is how you spend your life. And so it will add up to be a really meaningful impact to think through this conversation. For a long time. It will impact things for years to come.
Wow. That was a good quote. How you spend your time is how you spend your life.
I don't think it's my own quote. I think it's someone else's, but
I'm looking at hold up. I'm going to look it up right now. Annie Dillard has said, how we spend our days is how we spend our lives.
Oh, well, trademark me for the time one.
So there you go. I really like that though. And anyways, this conversation was your idea, and it's something that you're like really, really passionate about. And it's even been helpful for me to see that. It's just taking those little steps to be more intentional about the life you live. And it's very meaningful in the long run. So I think it's very valuable. So we hope that you guys saw some things or heard some things from this conversation that are valuable in your own journey. And we would love to hear more ideas from you on like how you are building a brand without living on your phone. Even if you just want to like DM us on Instagram or something like that, we would love to hear your ideas. If we do get any, we'll share them in the next episode. That would be super fun. And would love to hear your perspectives. So our next episode is going to be, I don't know, it's between one of two. It's either going to be a surprise. It'll be our episode on TikTok versus Instagram, or our episode on confidence in who you are and who you aren't. I don't know. If you care, feel free to DM us.
Those are going to be two really good ones. I'm excited for both of them.
It'll be fun. All right. There's episode 2. We'll see you at the next one.